Welcome to the deep dive. We grab your sources, dig in, and pull out the key stuff. Today, we've got something pretty wild. It's this gaming monitor, the KTC H24F8. Costs about, what, $170, which sounds super budget. But then you look at the specs, and they look more like something you'd pay like $300 plus for. So the big question is, how? How can a screen this cheap even compete?
Yeah, that's the hook, right. And here's the plot twist, really. KTC, they're not some brand new company popping up out of nowhere. They're actually an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, meaning for years, decades even, they were the ones making the display panels. For huge brands you definitely know. Think Samsung, Vonage, names like that.
Okay. So they weren't just assembling, they were making the core tech.
Exactly. And now they're just selling directly under their own KTC brand. So that immediately explains the value part. They've basically cut out the middleman. And, that big chunk of cash you usually pay just for the famous logo, that's gone too, the brand premium.
Right, the brand tax. Okay, let's get into those specs then, because they do sound almost too good to be true for that price. We're talking a 24-inch fast IPS panel. That's important, right? Less smearing than older budget tech.
Huge difference, yeah. Fast IPS is key at this price point. Then you've got the response time, 1 millisecond, and the refresh rate, 190 hertz. Okay, it's when overclocked, but still, that's fast.
Fiercely fast. And HDR 400 certification on top of that. Plus the color claims. What were they?
Really impressive, actually. 133% RGB coverage and a 94% DCI-P3. That's the wider gamut used in cinema. Those are numbers you just don't usually see anywhere near the entry-level market, usually reserved for mid-range, even high-end stuff.
Okay, but specs on paper are one thing. We've all seen that before. If the actual performance is laggy or smeary, especially with ghosting, none of it matters. So how did it actually perform? Did the test back up the numbers?
And this is where it gets really, really interesting. Because, yeah, they did. Sources like Display Ninja, they dug into the overdrive implementation. That's the tech controlling how quickly pixels actually shift colors. It's crucial.
Right, that's where cheap monitors often fall apart.
Exactly. But here, they found the KTC's overdrive rivals displays that cost twice as much. The big finding was basically zero ghosting across the entire refresh range. That's genuinely uncommon, even, on much pricier gaming monitors. So the performance absolutely validates the specs here.
Wow, okay. So they nailed the core panel performance. That's huge.
Yeah.
Did they have to cut corners on the other gaming stuff, like the convenience features, adaptive sync, overlays, that kind of thing?
Surprisingly, no, not really. Adaptive sync works smoothly. AMD cards and NVIDIA cards, no problem. And it still has the standard toolkit you'd expect. You get built-in crosshairs if you want them, an FPS counter right on screen, and a black stabilizer, which is pretty useful, actually. It brightens up those really dark, shadowy areas in games without blowing out the whole picture. Gives you, well, a bit of a tactical edge sometimes.
Okay, so the panel's great. Gaming features are there. There has to be a catch. Where do they save all that money? That $200 difference has to come from somewhere.
Oh, it does. And it's pretty obvious where the physical stuff, the build quality is, well, it's basic. It feels like a budget monitor. And the stand, they basically gutted it.
Gutted how?
It only tilts, that's it. No height adjustment at all. No swivel. And no built-in speakers either, which isn't a huge loss for most gamers, but still.
Well, most gamers use headsets or external speakers anyway. But the stand, yeah, that's a common budget cut. But hang on, isn't that sort of the perfect trade-off?
How do you mean?
Well, if you're saving, let's say, $200 compared to getting similar panel performance from a big brand like Asus or LG, you could just buy a Visa monitor arm, right, for like $30, maybe $40. Slap the KTC panel on that, and you fix the only real physical downside. And you still come out way, way ahead financially. It's just a smart calculation.
That's exactly the value proposition. You're spot on. You prioritize the screen performance, accept the basic build, and solve the stand issue yourself for cheap. And outlets like PC Gamer, PC World, they've reviewed these KTC models and praised them for exactly this. They confirmed you're not really sacrificing the core quality, the visual quality, just by skipping the brand name tax. It's properly disruptive.
So, wrapping this up then, the core takeaway seems clear. The KTC H24F8 is basically proof that an experienced manufacturer, using their OEM background, can deliver high-end panel performance way cheaper than the big names, simply by cutting out that brand recognition cost, the logo tax.
Precisely, which leads to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to consider. If this company can give you a 190 hertz fast IPS gaming experience for just over $100 by ditching the brand premium, where else in tech, maybe with phones or laptops or, well, anything. Where else might you be paying a really hefty tax without even realizing it just for the logo that's stamped on the case? Something to think about next time you're looking at specs versus price tags.